Hey, Marty.
Hi, John.
Hi. I left a message for you, but I finally figured it out. So I'm on.
Oh, no, that was you. I was like, I'm busy with city council.
Yeah.
I'm glad you made it in.
Yeah, believe me, so am I. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, the invitation didn't go out until pretty late tonight. We're stretched pretty thin with Kirsten gone now, so
Oh, so you
we're
need
just
another.
in time clerking.
Yeah, great. Good for you.
I don't know. It is what it is.
Well, you look good under pressure.
See my hives yet. So far, I have no Jordan Hess and no Anderson. Is that
And
correct?
that's according to my list as well. I know Jordan will be here.
Yeah,
I
Stacy
believe
will
Ms.
not be
Anderson
here.
is on vacation.
Correct.
Yeah, last I heard from her, she was out on the beach snorkeling. So
It's probably inappropriate to do raspberries, isn't it? Bummer.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock and I will call the Missoula City Council meeting of May 10th, 2021 to order. You are all attending via Zoom webinar and you've seen a number of instructions on your screen as to how you may comment and participate in the meeting this evening. Pardon me, if you are dialing in by phone, I will recognize you by the last 4 digits of your phone number and ask you to unmute yourself, as I will with folks who are participants in the webinar this evening. With that, I will note that all council members are present this evening except for Ms. Anderson. We do have minutes of the meeting of May 3rd, and without objection, they'll be approved. Seeing none, pardon me, we'll move on to our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Rabine.
Okay, we've had a tiny change to the schedule that we published last Friday. So I'll go over that when we get to it, but the Administration and Finance Committee is meeting this week, Wednesday, on the 12th of May, from 10 until 10:05 in the morning. The Parks and Conservation Committee meets from 10:20 to 11:35. The Public Works Committee will meet from 12:15 to 12:45. Land Use and Planning Committee meets from 1 to 3 o'clock. And here's the addition committee of the whole. We added on a committee of the whole meeting for the mayor's appointments to the Affordable Housing Oversight Committee. And that meeting is taking place from 3:15 to 3:25, only a 10-minute meeting. Just like this meeting, all these meetings are being held via Zoom webinar. In order to join the meeting, just click on the agenda on the city's agenda page at www.ci.missoula.mt.us and click on that meetings button in the middle of the page. That'll take you to all the city's agendas for our boards and commissions, and these meetings will all be listed there. And they're all being held in a webinar like this, so you just click on the link to join at the top of the agenda, or all the instructions about how to dial in are on every agenda as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Any changes to the committee schedule? All right, seeing none of those, we will move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on the agenda, and I'd ask you to keep your remarks to about 3 minutes, please. General public comment. Mr. Larson.
Yes, Matt Larson, Ward 3, Hi City Council, Hi Mayor. I just wanted to give you all an update. Last year, I started seeing a bunch of bullets being purchased in about August by MPD. And since then, about $40,000 to $60,000, I would estimate, has been purchased of .223 rounds by MPD. I'd also like to let you guys know about the secret coroner's inquests that happened on April 13th last month, about regarding the 2 officer-involved shootings. So while it's very, heartwarming that our mayor has things to say about the George Floyd thing, it's also disconcerting to see the county attorneys sweep 2 officer-involved shootings under the rug via an illegal coroner's inquest that does not adhere to state law. So I've retained an attorney, and we're about to challenge it. And we're about to challenge it with the open meetings, part of the Constitution of the state of Montana, which is also relevant here. But we'll see what happens later on this week. I'd urge the mayor to get his county attorney, or people on the county commissioners, to redo these coroner's inquests in adherence to state law, because it's the least we could do for our community, police officers, and the families of the deceased. Thank you.
And seeing no additional general public comment this evening, we will move on to our consent agenda. Items there were approved generally unanimously in city council standing committees, and we save a little time on Mondays by considering these items all at once. Ms. Rabine will read the list of consent agenda items aloud, so those participating in the webinar and watching at home on television will know what we're considering, and we'll take comment on these items before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
Thanks, Mary. And tonight's consent agenda has 7 items. And hang on just a second here. I'm going to rearrange my screen so I can read most of them. The first item, as always, is our accounts payable. We're paying vendors who've done work for the city. This week, council is being asked to approve accounts payable or claims in the amount of $796,940.92 for checks that are dated tomorrow, May 11th, 2021. Number 2 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with ProSweep for seal coating the parking lots located at Fort Missoula Regional Park Phase 2 in the amount of $35,304. Number 3 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a cost sharing agreement with the United States Army Corps of Engineers for an accelerated levee system evaluation of the Clark Fork River area number 3 and area 5 of the levee system. Number 4 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign 6 right-of-way agreements with various property owners for the city to construct public infrastructure for Mary Jane Boulevard in the Mullen Build project. Number 5 is to set a public hearing on May 24th on a resolution amending the annual appropriations for the city of Missoula, Montana, as set forth in fiscal year 2021 budget and capital improvement program. These are the city's 3rd quarter budget amendments. Number 6 is to appoint Elizabeth Costello for the alternate position on the planning board. And we're putting her for a term beginning immediately and ending on December 31st of 2021. That's at the end of the year. And finally, number 7, it's a little bit long, so I'm going to click in here so I can read the whole thing. City Council is adopting a resolution of intention to annex and incorporate within the boundaries of the city of Missoula a parcel of land that is located at 3946 Fox Den Court. And it's legally described as portion A of lots A1 in the Fairway View Edition, lot A1 and lot A2 and lot 3 of the Fairway View Edition. Those are all located in section 1 of Township 12 North, range 20 West, Principal Meridian, Montana, as shown on Exhibit A and Exhibit B of the Resolution of Intention. Council is being asked to zone this property Fairway Edition Planned Unit Development. So there's a special zoning designation for the Fairway View Edition, and this property is being proposed to be added to that. And that is all based on findings of fact that are located in the staff report that's attached to this agenda item. And it's subject to the recommended conditions of approval that are listed in the resolution. City Council is setting a public hearing for next week on this item on May 17th, 2021. So we look forward to hearing from more folks about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Questions or comments from council members? Mr. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we please divide the question and vote on item 5.1 separately due to some water legal bills, Perkins Coie?
We certainly may.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. Anyone in the audience care to comment? Mr. Larson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and City Council, Matt Larson, Ward 3. Wondering what the New World / Tyler Records fee for $60,000 is from the Missoula County treasurer. I'm also wanting to draw attention to the over-militarization and continued over-militarization of MPD. There's a purchase of 2 rifles on this invoice for about $9,000. Those look like really nice sniper rifles. They are made by Snowy Mountain Rifles. And it looks like you're buying a bunch of nice, expensive bullets for those. So awesome. Congratulations, and thank you for the untold and never-ending legal fees from the water battle.
Seeing no additional public comment, we will have a roll call vote on item 1 and subsequently on the remainder.
Okay, on the claims, Becerra,
Yes.
Contos, Contos, John, I didn't hear you if you voted.
Oh, no.
Hart.
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
No.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vaccination,
No.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 8 ayes and 3 nays and 1 absent.
And item 1 is approved. And on the balance, Ms. Rabine.
Okay, on the regular consent agenda, let's start this round with Contos,
Yes.
Harp,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Vaccination,
Yes.
Von Lossberg,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 absent.
And the consent agenda is approved. We have no comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, or authorities this evening, or from the community forum, nor do we have any special presentations. We do have 2 public hearings this evening. State law and our own council rules set guidelines for, pardon me, hearing in a formal way on a variety of issues. We'll have a staff report on each of these items, and a post-staff report, we will invite community comment. Our practice is to hold the public hearing open for a week or until the next regular council meeting for additional comment. And council will take these items up under final consideration at their next regular meeting. First of these is on a group living conditional use at 228, 234, and 246 South 6th Street West. And our staff report this evening comes from Ms. McCafferty.
Hello, can everyone see me and hear me and see my screen?
We can.
Cool. I'm Caitlin McCafferty from Development Services and the new CPDI. This request is from Colin Lane of MMW Architects on behalf of Mike Robinson of Hogan Senior Living LLC. The request is for a group living conditional use at 228, 234, and 246 South 6th Street West. The applicant is proposing one newly constructed group living building with 36 bedroom suites and communal kitchen, dining, and living spaces. The project's intent is to create attainable, accessible housing for seniors, and the facility will apply for an age restriction of 55 and up under the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995. So each zoning district under Title 20 includes 3 types of uses: permitted, conditional, and prohibited uses. This project's requested use, group living, is labeled a conditional use in its zone, which is RT 2.7. A conditional use is a use that is allowed only if reviewed and approved in accordance with the conditional use procedures of Title 20 85070, which includes this public hearing and a final action by City Council. And that final action may be to approve the proposed use or to approve the proposed use with conditions. Council must make their determination based on a list of criteria that are detailed in Title 20, specifically in 20 85070. Not every criteria will apply, and only the applicable criteria need to be met. And then later in the presentation, after I go over the details of the project, I'll describe all the criteria that are applicable and how the proposal addresses each of those criteria. So first is the location. So this slide shows the location of the subject property. It's outlined in red right here. It's on the corner of Hazel and South 6th Street West. The subject property, again in red, is zoned RT 2.7 residential. And according to Title 20, a group living use requires that conditional use approval to operate in this zoning district. Title 20 includes a few categories of group living, of the group living use, all within their own specific requirements and standards. And this includes the general group living use and a few other specific group living use types. So first is the general group living use. It's defined by Title 20 105-020B as a residential occupancy of dwelling other than a household, typically providing communal kitchen and dining facilities. And so this project definitely fits the description of group living use. The next use category is community residential facility. It's a specific type of group living use. It's defined in Title 20 105-020B1 as any of the following types of projects. So first, a group, foster, or other home specifically provided as a place of residence serving developmentally disabled or handicapped persons. Next, a district youth guidance home, a detention, receiving, or shelter home, a halfway house, a licensed adult foster family care home, or a licensed assisted living facility. All of these uses or specific uses that I just listed are further defined in Montana State Law 76-411, and none of them meet this project, mainly due to the difference in intended residents and the lack of any medical care or staff for this project's proposal. Next is another type of group living use, the healthcare facility, which Title 20 defers to state law 55-101 for its definition. And again, this project does not fit this category either because the proposed project does not provide any medical care or staff to serve the residents. And the last one I have up here is an assisted living facility. It's a specific type of community residential facility that I listed before. It's defined in state law 55-227, as a facility that serves residents requiring a specific level of care through nursing and service staff, which again, this project does not address. And so therefore, this project is classified as that first general group living use and not any of these specific categories that I listed under. And so it will be reviewed as such the general group living use. Moving on to our Missoula 2035 City Growth Policy, which designates the subject property, again outlined in red on this slide, as residential medium high density, which supports a density of 12 to 23 dwelling units per acre. And this use is identified for areas close to the core of the community and where city services and infrastructure are readily available, but the pattern of existing development is less intense than primary multi-dwelling buildings. Also, in its chapter on housing, the growth policy specifically calls for a citywide emphasis on creating a range of opportunity for affordable housing development for the workforce, lower income residents, and seniors. This project's 55 and up age restriction for tenants and its communal elements speak directly to this need called out in the growth policy. This slide shows the current conditions of the site viewed from north, south, east, and west. So on the south, so this is South 6th Street West, fronting the subject parcel. East is towards the back of this picture in like the yellow square, and that's South 6th Street again. The west is Hazel Street, and then the corner of Hazel and 6th, and then north is the back of the subject parcel with the alley and Hazel Street. Here's this, a current schematics of the project. It's from the same 4 views as above for a little bit of a comparison. Again, the project is 1 new building. It's comprised of 13 one-bedroom suites and 23 studio suites with communal kitchen, dining, and living spaces. And again, the tenants will be ages 55 and up. The allowable density for group living is calculated in Title 20, which allows 2.7 residents per every 1,000 square feet of parcel area in this zoning district. So the subject property is 19,471 square feet, which after the math, it allows for a max up to 51 residents in this space. 36 bedroom suites are proposed, which is under the maximum allowed density. In order to further guarantee compliance with Title 20 requirements on density, staff is recommending a condition of approval requiring the applicant to provide an executed affidavit restricting density in compliance with Title 20. So the affidavit would restrict density to up to 51 residents. Here's the site plan for the project. So this on the bottom of the screen is 6th Street, and then Hazel is here. Top of the screen's got the alley, and then on the other side is a proposed cross-access easement. On the north are the parking spaces 1 through 6 right here. And then on the east, this little guy right here is an ADA van space. I'm going to go into parking calculations in a future slide. So put a pin in that for now. However, it does meet Title 20 for parking. On the south, you can see I've highlighted these triangles, these yellow triangles. And these are 2 AASHTO documented site visibility triangles. These are areas that AASHTO has recognized need to be kept clear so that oncoming drivers of vehicles approaching an intersection have an unobstructed view of any conflicting vehicles or pedestrians. So in order to comply with Title 20 zoning and Title 12, which is engineering, and to keep these site visibility triangles clear, city engineering recommends a condition of approval prohibiting objects either on public or private property that exist at 30 inches or more above the established top of street grade within the site visibility triangle. So everything within these site visibility triangles, these yellow triangles, needs to be below 30 inches established top of street grade. Another notable element on this site plan is the location of the Kentucky coffee tree along 6th Street, which I have marked by this tree icon that is green and blue. Kentucky coffee trees are one of Missoula's slowest growing species, and it also holds a really high value for its climate resilience and its carbon sequestration. So because of this, staff recommends a condition of approval requiring the applicant to retain this Kentucky coffee tree and provide a tree protection plan prior to building permit approval. City Parks and Rec also recommends that the remainder of the existing trees are to be removed and replaced to meet boulevard landscaping requirements along Hazel and South 6th Street West. The last element on the site plan that's worth noting is this big red X that I have right here, and it's just a marker that will make my next slide make sense. But so this X is marking the proposed access to the property into this proposed cross-access easement. So just keep an eye on that as I switch to this slide. So that X is here. This proposed approach is right here. This is a current aerial of the current condition of the site. And then there's that tree just to orient you guys. Again, the proposed approach from the site plan, I just pointed out, is right here. And then as you can see to the east of the subject site, and this is a different parcel, this is not the subject parcel, but there are already two existing approaches to this parking lot. And too many driveway approaches on one block increases the chances of conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians. So because of this, city engineering commented that the new driveway approach to South 6th Street West, that's this proposed approach right here, cannot be approved unless one of these two existing approaches, marked by the X's, are eliminated. The applicant is fully aware of this condition and is working with the adjacent property to coordinate a refiguring of the parking lot to meet this requirement. Now on to the explanation of parking. So Title 20 zoning ordinance treats group living uses like a single family residence with a lot of bedrooms. So there's multiple bedroom suites, however, cooking and dining spaces are communal, just like a house with a bunch of bedrooms in it. Because of this, the parking requirements are similar to a single family residence, which is 2 per building. A group living building is not considered a multi-dwelling structure per Title 20 because multi-dwelling structures have multiple independent dwelling units. They each have their own separate entrance, full cooking, bathing, living, dining facilities. And this is just, these are qualities that this project does not have and does not fall under. So it is a group living use, and the applicant is required to provide 2 parking spaces, and they have in fact proposed 6 parking spaces plus the additional ADA van space that was on the east side of the site plan. Similarly, for bike parking, Title 20 does not list group living under required standards, which makes the requirement for bike parking 0. The applicant has proposed 6 short-term bike parking spaces near the entrance of the building, and in the basement, there's space for long-term storage for bikes, which are accessible by elevators. So all in all, both vehicle and bike parking, the applicant is exceeding the minimum requirements for parking in Title 20. In addition, it's definitely worth noting that this location is very well served by public transit. Now for the staff's analysis of how this conditional use proposal meets the review criteria of Title 20 that I mentioned at the very beginning of my presentation. And these requirements are listed on this slide. So first, we've got compliance with growth policy and zoning, which is required and along with engineering and fire standards will be confirmed at the time of building permit approval per conditions of approval number 1 through 6. Also in this chapter, in its chapter on housing, the growth policy calls for that citywide emphasis on creating a range of opportunity for affordable housing development for seniors. This project 55 plus age restriction and those communal elements for the tenants really speak to this need that's specifically called out in the growth policy. Next, the project is in the interest of public convenience and has no significant impact on the general welfare because of a condition of approval number 2, which restricts the density to the amount allowed by zoning. And the use will provide convenient housing for seniors, close to public transit and essential services, including those dense commercial areas we know as the Hip Strip, downtown, and Orange Street. The project is compatible with the character of the area and surrounding buildings. It is similar in design and scale to the surrounding area, which includes a diverse mixture of single dwelling residential and commercial, multi-dwelling, religious assembly, and mixed-use buildings. These surrounding structures vary from single story to over 4 stories. The project will also comply with boulevard landscaping standards, which adds to the character, fitting in with the character surrounding the project. Next, the group living use has a compatible operating characteristics similar to all the other residential uses in the surrounding area, so it'll fit right in. Traffic safety is maintained through the project's compliance with all applicable sections of Title 12 and will be further confirmed if City Council imposes conditions number 3 and 4. Those were the conditions about the site visibility triangles. And the surrounding road infrastructure is adequate to handle the additional traffic that will be generated by the group living use, and the site is served by transit, sidewalk, and bike lanes. Next, the group living use. Again, it's a single residential structure with multiple bedroom suites and communal living, dining, and kitchen facilities. It will not impede the improvement of surrounding properties because it has to comply with Title 20 standards, such as the maximum height and setbacks, as well as the use and specific building standards for group living uses. And finally, the project will properly address open space, light, and protection of natural features by complying with setback requirements and maximum height standards to ensure adequate open space and light. And again, if City Council imposes conditions of approval 5 and 6, the applicant will be required to retain and protect that existing Kentucky coffee tree and follow boulevard landscaping standards as recommended by City Parks and Recreation. Based on staff review, the recommended condition of approval for this conditional use request are that the applicant will first comply with all applicable portions of Title 20 and shall substantially conform with the plan submitted at the time of the conditional use review. Number 2, provide that executed affidavit restricting density in compliance with Title 20 use and specific building standards for the group living uses. So that's speaking to that density. The third condition of approval is that the applicant shall locate any landscaping, guardrails, patios, or other objects at 30 inches or more above grade outside of the visibility triangles at the corner of Hazel and South 6th Street West and at the west side of the driveway approach on South 6th Street West. Condition of approval number 4, the applicant shall eliminate the driveway approach to South 6th Street West unless one of the 2 driveway approaches to the parking lot to the east are eliminated. And the last 2 conditions of approval are number 5, that the applicant retain and provide a tree protection plan for the 1 Kentucky coffee tree located in front of 228 South 6th Street West. And finally, number 6, remove all other boulevard trees except the Kentucky coffee tree by a licensed arborist and provide boulevard landscaping plan for the boulevards on Hazel Street and South 6th Street West that meet City Park and Recreation standards. In conclusion, staff recommends the approval of this group living conditional use request for Hogan Senior Living located at 228, 234, 246 South 6th Street West in accordance with Missoula City Zoning Ordinance, Title 20, Sections 2010-020D, 2040-110, 2085-070, and 2105-020B1, based on the findings of fact in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval. And that is the end of it.
And thank you, Ms. McCafferty. I had no idea until this evening that a Kentucky coffee tree was a thing. So continue to learn something every
It's really
day
cute. I have a
here
picture
as
of
mayor of the city of Missoula. With that, I will open the public hearing. Anyone interested in commenting on this item, feel free to do so. And please remember the public hearing will remain open for a week. And I see no one in the audience at the moment.
Aaron, the architect had his hand up. His name was Colin.
Yep. That's the applicant's rep.
There he is, right down there in the bottom corner of our Zoom window.
Oh, Mr. Lane, you popped from, you moved from attendees to panelists. That's my problem. Still figuring out Zoom, apparently. Go ahead, Mr. Lane.
Thank you very much. I'm Colin Lane with MMW Architects. And I thank you, Caitlin, for walking through all that. I just wanted to reiterate that we feel like this project is in great compliance with the growth plan, as well as all the other more recent planning work that the city has completed. This fills a very acute need with seniors at prices that will be attainable, and we're excited to be a part of this community. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Seeing no additional public comment, again, the public hearing will remain open. I have two council members' hands up. Ms. Merritt.
Thanks. I just wanted to point out that the immediately adjacent to this project is the Missoula Community School preschool. And I'm wondering, Mr. Lane, if there are, if that's been part of the discussion and any measures. I know one of the things is that the students from that school will walk out of the building and cross the alleyway to get to the playground that they use there. And I just hope that there are some safety considerations in mind in that regard. I didn't see anyone mention anything about the fact that this is adjacent to a school.
Yeah, you bet. Not part of this application or this project, but the church owns the parking lot and the playground next to it. They are in the process of relocating that playground to the same side of the block that the school is on. So the plan is to make that a much safer relationship. I will also say that we believe that having the school next to this senior living community represents a great opportunity for some intergenerational relationships to happen.
And Ms. Hart.
Thank you. Colin, just kind of going along those lines. I've had a couple of constituents kind of concerned about this idea of group living. And I think it's something we've used very, very, very seldomly throughout Missoula. I'm wondering if you can just kind of go on the record and explain how this differs and why your client decided to go down this route than trying to do multifamily, and speaking to the need of this particular demographic.
Yeah, thank you. You bet. My client has had a heart for seniors for a very long time. He has also lived in group living situations and recognizes that the living in a group situation can offer a lot of sense of community and support that our senior population might particularly need. So that group living is very much a part of the DNA of my client and what this project is about. So thank you.
And then Ms. Jones.
Thanks. Interesting project. I have not made it through all of the public comment yet. I got stuck in meetings all afternoon, and I'm going to make it through the rest of the public comment. And then I do have a bunch of questions for Wednesday when we're having this in committee, Caitlin and Colin, regarding parking and bike storage and I think we need a little bit more clarification regarding conditional use and what that means and what comes underneath that umbrella. But for tonight, so I'll get to that on Wednesday, but I was wondering if you have any ideas in terms of price ranges that you'll be looking at for these units. And I understand it's a work in progress, but I think that is first and foremost on people's minds.
I'm only prepared to speak to that generally. I think Mike may be here and may want to speak to that, but generally, we've used the term attainable in an attempt to not specifically tie to a particular median income calculation. The project is privately funded. It's not required to meet any particular threshold. But I would also say that the intent is there, similar to how I explained why the group living use is very much a part of what this project is. So is having the price structure be reasonable for folks in Missoula.
Follow up?
Ms. Jones?
Thank you. And just to clarify, these are not condos, but it will be a rental unit owned by an entity, and all of these will be rentals?
Correct.
Okay, great. Well, I will craft my questions for Wednesday. Needed some more time, but thanks for opening the hearing tonight.
And Ms. Cheryl?
Yeah, thanks. And just quickly, I have not had a chance yet to get through all the public comments, so I will have those done by Wednesday. But I just wanted to say that I think, just from what I know about this project so far, it's a very creative project for senior living. And as I was listening to this, I kept thinking about my parents in Portland, that they're still together and still both alive, but isolation becomes a real thing, and they don't really cook that much anymore. They kind of nibble on things and eat out a lot, and so I imagine being close to transit and close to walking places. I just as I think about seniors and some of the things that they struggle with, this idea. I mean, we'll get into the specifics of the project a little more on Wednesday with some more questions, but I just appreciate the creativity and, making life good and hopefully attainable. That's obviously a big thing for the seniors. So thanks.
All right, seeing no additional council comment, we will take this item up and the public hearing closes next week. Our next public hearing this evening is on a rezoning ordinance for a number of addresses at River Road from RT10 to RT5.4. And our staff report this evening comes from Mr. DeGranpre.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I'm just about to share my screen. Can you see it?
We can.
All right, great. Well, my name is Dave DeGranpre. I am a land use supervisor with Development Services, Community Planning, Development, and Innovation. And we have received an application for a rezoning of property with 4 addresses, 2103, 2103 and a half, 2105, and 2105 and a half River Road, from RT10 to RT5.4. And the application was submitted by Paul Forsting and IMEG Corporation on behalf of DLE Investments. In terms of the decision-making space or parameters that you have, City Council typically either approves or denies a rezoning based on specific criteria that are in Title 20, and also the criteria that are in Montana Code annotated Section 762304. A zoning district in one area of the city, this is based on Montana law, a zoning district based in one area of the city, such as RT 5.4, for example, is applied equally across RT 5.4 districts in other areas of the city. In other words, rezonings are not tied to a specific site plan, they're not conditioned, they're applied and administered equally across different parts of the city. But one unique feature of a zone change is that if owners of 25% or more of the property within the rezone or within 150 feet of the property file a protest petition with our office, then 2/3 of the present and voting members of council is required to approve the rezoning. The subject property is 38,420 square feet in size. It's located on the south side of River Road between Reserve on the west and Russell on the east. The area is largely developed with single and two family type residential development. There are some properties that are less developed, I suppose, that have some space for potential future development, but largely it's fairly built out with smaller scale residential type homes, not real high density, but it's a developed area of Missoula, kind of in the core. All of the zoning surrounding the subject property is RT10. There's an unzoned parcel here still in the county that you see in green, and then there are a couple of other zoning districts. There's a planned unit development over on the next block to the east and RM 2.7 to the southeast, but largely it's RT10 in the area. Here's a snip from the growth policy map, and the Our Missoula growth policy calls out this area as residential medium density. So that's a density of residential development between 3 and 11 dwelling units per acre. And the growth policy specifies that there are 4, it's called current relatable districts, or zoning districts, with the residential medium designation. And they are RT10, which is the current zoning, R8, R5.4, and then RT 5.4, which is the proposed zone. The zoning districts are very similar, the existing and proposed. In terms of building types, they both allow detached houses, lot line houses, 2-unit townhomes. The RT10, the existing district, also allows 3-unit townhouses. They have identical setbacks, 20 feet in the front and rear, 7.5 interior side, and 10 feet street side. Identical maximum building heights. Really, the difference is density. The existing zoning RT10 requires a 10,000 foot minimum square foot minimum lot size, and also 10,000 square feet minimum area per unit. The proposed zoning would allow 5,400 square feet per unit and per lot. So what that boils down to is currently 4 existing dwelling units are allowed on the site, and up to 7 could be built. So it's a kind of an incremental increase is what the applicant is asking for. Slightly higher density. And incidentally, the developer has not submitted any additional plans for redevelopment. Currently, there are 4 homes on the property. And from what I understand from talking with the developer and his agents, he's preparing the property for sale. The 4 homes are modest in scale. Actually, I'll show you a slide to give you a better indication. So here's a more zoomed in aerial photograph. You can see the 4 homes on the property. They are all detached residences of modest scale. There are 3 conventional, 3 stick-built homes, and also a mobile. They share a private driveway, and you can see, and it's partially paved. It's partially gravel. Development in the immediate vicinity is a mixture of, it's mostly single-family detached type homes, but also some duplexes, 2-unit homes in the area. River Road is a collector, and a major collector is how it's designated by the city. The property itself is currently served by septic systems and also an individual community water system. So interesting to note, at least it was interesting for me, there are quite a few septic systems in this area. But I think over time, as properties are redeveloped, they're required to connect to city services. Here's actually a map of city utilities. So in the yellow lines indicate sewer mains. So you can see that sewer is available along River Road, and these little circles are manholes, incidentally. You can see that the sewer flows to the west. And the blue are water mains. Blue lines are water mains. So both water and sewer are available to serve the property. If redevelopment were to occur, or when redevelopment occurs on the property at some point, then the property will be required to connect to city sewer. Wouldn't have to connect to city water, from what I'm hearing from city engineering department, unless the existing well fails. But it would have to connect to city sewer. Would also have to improve the private drive. Would have to improve the street frontage along River Road into a complete street, and those sorts of improvements upon redevelopment. But again, we don't have any plans for redevelopment submitted at this point. There are fire hydrants in the area. There's one here located to the west at the intersection of Curtis and also River, and then the fire hydrant here in the northeast portion of the image, and also to the east of the property. So you can see that city services are available along a fairly major transportation corridor. The Missoula growth policy, as you know, calls for a focused inward approach. And so it promotes redevelopment of existing parcels of land as opposed to sprawl. That's kind of the general concept. And so you can see from this image, you've got LaFrey Park, a nice little park located. It's about 0.16 acres or feet from the property. What am I trying to say? 1.6 miles from the property. Sorry about that. I'm getting my facts and figures mixed up. Very close to the property, and you can get to it via sidewalk. You have the Milwaukee Trail located a short distance to the south, which, as you know, can provide access to different parts of the city. You also have transit stop here at the River Road Russell intersection. I guess the downside is that to get to that transit, there isn't a lot in the way of sidewalk, and there are not designated bike paths at this point, but the long-range transportation plan that's about to undergo the adoption process calls for a complete street along this section of River Road. So at some point in the future, eventually anyway, the idea is to have sidewalks, bike paths, boulevards, and that sort of thing. So to provide pedestrian and bicycle facilities. This property is in proximity to urban services. I talked about sewer and water. You also have police, fire. It's in a central location within the city of Missoula. It supports a compact development pattern and is in the urban core. So it's, I believe, in compliance and supported by the growth policy goals. The staff report describes the criteria. I don't probably need to go through them all in great detail tonight, but if you want to talk about them, I'm happy to do so. And we could also talk about them more at the Land Use and Planning Committee meeting on Wednesday. But both staff and the planning board found that this project is supported or complies with the criteria called out in Title 20 and also Montana Code, and that it complies with the growth policy. It facilitates the provision of public services and transportation, promotes compatible urban growth, public health and safety, and also considers district character and sustainability and suitability of use. So the planning board held a public hearing of their own on April 20th, and by a vote of 8-0, unanimously recommended approval of the zone change. And it was a good discussion of the board, lots of interesting ideas thrown out, but in general, the board felt that this level of zoning, this zone change, it's an incremental increase and provides some assurance to neighbors about future development due to the limited scope and scale of the zone change. The board members, at least one, mentioned that the possibility of 3 new homes is reasonable. Wouldn't be a drastic change. That connection to city water and sewer upon redevelopment or at some point in the future would be beneficial. Also, that this rezoning would allow an increased density and not be on undeveloped farmland, which some of the members thought that was important. And then also, there was some back and forth and discussion about what would prompt connection to city services, what would prompt street improvements and those sorts of things. But I think the board was generally satisfied with the proposal in its scope and scale. And so the board recommended approval. And then lastly, just procedurally, tonight's the public hearing, of course, and City Council has final consideration on the 17th, so next Monday night. In terms of public comment, I mentioned at the beginning that if there's protest that comes in, over 25% of the adjoining landowners, that 2/3 majority would be required to approve the zone change. In this case, we do not have any protests that have been submitted to date and no written public comment at this time. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. DeGrandpre. Does staff have a recommendation for the council?
Yes, sorry. The recommendation is for approval of the zone change as stipulated in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. With that, I will open the public hearing. And we have 2 participants this evening, neither of whom has raised a hand. So we'll take some council comments and we'll begin. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Forsting, on behalf of developer.
Yes, Paul Forsting, iMeg Corporation. Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, council members, for hearing this project. This is an infill project that we're excited about. We don't have grand plans necessarily for how the site's going to be developed. I'm here today with Josh Eder. He's the property owner. He's actually selling the property, and so the person he's selling it to is going to start by remodeling the 2 back units. By back, I mean furthest to the south, and then potentially work forward. But ultimately, I think they will add 3 units, getting the total count to 7 if the zoning is approved. Whenever this site is developed, or when development occurs on the site, water, sewer, roads, those type of things will have to be evaluated and installed, designed. Josh and I haven't done that yet, so we don't have any type of plans, but I know that it's a tight site, and so those things will have to be done with care and in accordance with the city's rules. And so that's all I add right now, and I look forward to, well, I'm thankful that they got the planning board's approval unanimously, and I'm very thankful for the staff report from the planning staff of a recommendation for approval. So that's all I'll add. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, Mr. Eder.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking the time. Appreciate you allowing me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to add to what Paul was saying. I know the name says DLE Investments. That's just a name after my late father, but my name is Josh Eder, born and raised here in Missoula. I lived there at this residence first year of my life and then later in college. Been in my family for over 50 years. Next year will be 50. Personally, I've been part of affordable housing nonprofits in Missoula for 8 or 9 years in my 20 years in the nonprofit arena. And I tell you that because I have a strong passion, strong feelings for housing. Currently, I have 2 residents that have been there for about 15 and 20 years respectively. Both of them are going to be staying in their current locations. The 2 back houses, as Paul said, I had them drug tested. They came back positive for methamphetamine. So those need to be remediated. So something needs to happen with those regardless. So as probably over 3 years ago, I started down this road with Paul to redevelopment this property. Biggest thing, knowing that it needed some work on the infrastructure end of things to improve. Biggest thing is like a sidewalk on the front of the street. That'd be wonderful for the whole neighborhood. But as I went into this further, and then we started the rezone about January of this year, personally, things changed in my world. So I didn't want to take it to the next 2 to 3 years to develop this. I was able to find an older couple looking to, as a retirement, work on some houses in Missoula. They have family here. They, as Paul said, want to start very small. Great part is nobody's getting kicked out right away. So nobody's losing their homes. The new owners are open to talking with the current residents. It fits great, I think, what the city's putting forward with the new growth policy. Great example to put to other residents that are thinking about something like this type of project. And with it being restricted into that lot size, there's not really a whole lot outside of what's been presented today that the additional developers are going to do. So having said all that, I just wanted to share my story and the reasonings behind why this is happening, why I'm not the one going to see through the development, but it is not a big outside developer coming in or changing the character. I've been very adamant about keeping that character and about the residents currently there. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Eder. And with that, council members, Ms. Merritt.
Thank you. I just have a question for Dave, and if you don't have the answer off the top of your head, that is completely fine. What I noticed in looking at this is that a number of the lots surrounding this lot do not meet that minimum 10,000 square foot parcel size. And, so I've been kind of having a hard time wrapping my head around why this is all zoned RT10 to begin with, because we don't have RT10 density in existence in a lot of this neighborhood. Can you maybe speak to what the implications are of having a lot of existing non-conforming lots? Or maybe can you confirm for me that there are a lot of non-conforming lots there?
I can't actually off the top of my head. I'll have to go back and look at the lot sizes surrounding this property. I'm happy to do that prior to Wednesday's meeting. But in terms of implications, it's really not a big deal in the sense that there's essentially a grandfather clause in the city zoning ordinance that allows those lots to continue to be used in their current fashion into the future with very few limitations. So I don't know exactly why the RT10 was applied to homes in this area, but I can tell you that it doesn't impact the lot owners a whole lot.
Thanks.
And Ms. West.
So I'm happy to wait for the answer till Wednesday, but I wanted to ask about just if this is in the floodplain or where the floodplain is in relationship to this property. I know that River Road is adjacent to a levee, and I think it would just be good information to have. So thank you, Dave.
Sure. The property is not located in a 100-year or 500-year floodplain. It's in an area that's considered Zone X, area of low flood hazard risk.
All right, seeing no additional comment from council members, this public hearing will remain open. We have no additional public hearings this evening. We do have a couple of items for final consideration, the first of which is the Patty Street right-of-way vacation request. And our staff report is, or I'm sorry, we don't even have a staff report this evening. We do need a motion, however, from Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. Just 1 second. Okay. So I recommend that we adopt a resolution closing and vacating south approximately 30 feet of Patty Street, lying north of Best Reed Park, at the southern end of Patty Street cul-de-sac as described in Exhibit 8.
And that motion is in order. Is there discussion on the motion this evening? All right, seeing none. Anyone in the audience care to comment? We no longer have audience, but Ms. Becerra.
I just briefly wanted to say that this is a logical next step in order to get us to accomplish the goals that we are setting as a community for the North Riverside plan that's taking shape. This will go a long ways to help us do that. So I fully support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Any further comment from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Okay, on the resolution, I think we start this round with Hart.
Yes.
Hess.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Zika.
Yes.
and Mossberg.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 absent.
And the vacation is approved. Our second item for final consideration is an amendment to our park and open space requirements cash in lieu component. And I would love a motion from Ms. Cheryl.
And I would love to give you that motion, but give me just a second. I'm in the wrong screen.
And Mayor, if I may interject, I think this was an LUP item that.
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Hess. Mr. Hess, I'll take the motion from you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I would move adoption of a resolution to amend Article 3, Section 080.7 of the existing subdivision design standards, Missoula City Subdivision Regulations, to reflect the proposed language as set forth in the attached Exhibit A proposed amendment language, amended to include the staff recommended change to subsection B. And I'd speak to the motion if that's all right.
Mr. Hess.
So this is, as we've described several times, a pretty minor change to the cash in lieu requirements of the parkland dedication chapter of subdivision. It's been described as surgical, and I think that that's a pretty accurate way to describe it. It's a minor change to create some consistency on how we come up with values for parkland. I want to acknowledge the planning board who gave us a no recommendation on this. And as I said in committee the other day, I don't take overturning a planning board recommendation lightly. I think that the planning board made some good points, and staff came back and had a few, some additional information and a few recommended changes to this based on planning board feedback. And I'd also note that the planning board voted to not recommend this in a real bifurcated manner. That is that the no votes were split and the yes votes were somewhere in the middle. And I think with the staff revisions and the council discussion, I think that this all pans out to be a pretty good piece of business in my mind. Cash in lieu is not perfect. It is a tool to get money when parkland dedication isn't the most appropriate thing. And the city's used it well over the last several decades, but there is additional work to amend this tool and to really make it the strongest tool with the best community interest that we have. But in the meantime, I think that this is a good amendment, and I support it. I want to acknowledge also the staff's work to include the development community in the implementation of this. I know we had a few comments at the last committee meeting from the development community, and our city staff have assured me that they'll really work to include developer and appraiser representatives as they go to implement this. So all that said, I support the motion, and I encourage you all to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Mr. Hess's motion is in order. Discussion on that motion, Ms. Merritt.
Thanks, and I do appreciate the work that staff has put in on this, and I totally understand the need for it, that there has been conflicting information about how to proceed with the cash in lieu transactions, but I'm just not able to support this motion at this time. I think that we could have approached it better with the development community and gotten some more buy-in from them. I know that there have been a lot of great conversations among staff and the development community that are really moving things along in other areas. And I hope that in the future that the same will happen in this arena, but I'm not going to be able to support this tonight. Thanks.
And Mr. Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we discussed this in committee. I'd like to offer an amendment and see what the council thinks of it. So under subsection B, the sale price of the property being subdivided, documented by a purchase price and sell agreement or other executed contract if it was purchased within 1 year of the date of the final plat application submittal, provided the property zoning designation remains unchanged. I'd like to change that to within 3 years. And the reason for that suggestion is simply because sometimes the city's overwhelmed and sometimes it takes far more than a year to get a property approved for development. So that kind of changes the whole business model. And I don't want this to deter any investors from investing here and any developers from developing here. As we know, we have a supply shortage. So I just don't want to have any of those unintended consequences. So with your permission, I'd like to offer an amendment to change that to within 3 years of the date of the final plat application submittal.
Mr. Ramos's motion to amend is in order. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I really appreciate the amendment, and I apologize for not addressing that in my comments. I know that that Mr. Ramos brought that up in the committee, and I think that that there's some importance to the timeline. And I guess I am. I'm not going to accept that as a friendly amendment, and the reasons for that is that the 1 year timeline, and I'm going to get out of my depth here fairly quickly, so I defer to Mr. Carlton to fill in the gaps here. But there are some standards in terms of the length of time that an appraisal price is valid, and those are industry standards, and I think that Mr. Carlton can speak to those. Also, the appraisal is not triggered at a point in time where delay on the city part could cause any problems on the part of the developer. So I think that the appraisal is just ordered up at the time when it makes sense in the process. So I appreciate that these land, these large developments can take a long time to for the deal to be closed or for the project to move along. But I think that those timelines are all pretty well addressed in this process. And so with apologies to Mr. Ramos for not bringing this back up with an update, I don't think that that amendment is necessary in this case. And I think that we're okay with as we are. Thanks. And Mayor, if I may, while I have the floor, can I ask Mr. Carlton to fill in the gaps on the appraisal timeline?
You may, Mr. Carlton.
Sure. Thank you, council members. Yeah, so I speaking to the actual appraisal itself, let's get that clear. That would be subsection A. We will work that out directly in the implementation phase. So that should not be an issue. We will have a design process there to address when an appraisal actually is commissioned. Speaking to subsection B, the timeline in that subsection, the 12-month timeline was, we did vet that and we specifically included that. So if you look at the current existing language, right now we do require an appraisal. So nothing's changed there. What we wanted to do was carve out an exception. So when a subdivider has a recent sale within a year, that subdivider does not then have to commission an appraisal. So this was an additional sort of carve out to make life a little bit easier for a subdivider who recently purchased a property. That is consistent with other communities, and I would say that we do have a fairly, as you guys know, a fairly rapidly changing market. So that's why we landed on a year. A lot can change in 2 years and especially 3 years. And so again, a subdivider, as it currently stands, would have to commission an appraisal, which wouldn't change anything given the current language, if that makes sense. So we wanted to add a bit of an exception there and to make the road a little bit easier, but only under the sideboards of a year, so that the market doesn't change drastically. That was our design and our plan.
Thank you, Mr. Carlton. On the motion to amend, Ms. Cheryl?
Yeah, I appreciate Jesse's motion and thinking about this, but I think that Grant and Jordan have answered some of my questions. My concern was around the appraisal's validity and the timeline of an appraisal. But one thing that I've always worried about with the cash in lieu program, and I will be supporting Jordan's motion, but one thing that I've always worried about is the fact that, we're putting the money in a pot, right? And then we don't spend it immediately, and our property values are already changing quite rapidly, as we see. So if we say we can, if we push it off 3 years and then it's in a pot of money, I just think that it's not going to be, it's too far out and there's too many unknowns about property values at that point for me to support that. Although I do appreciate Jesse's considerations.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, it's hard to hear a voice vote, so we'll have a roll call vote on the motion to amend.
Okay, this is an amendment to subsection B of the proposed changes. And I think we start this round with Hess.
No.
And Jones.
Yes, thank you. Wait, I'm sorry.
It's on
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the
No.
Merritt.
No.
Ramos.
Yes.
Cheryl.
No.
Vaccination.
Yes.
Von Lossberg.
No.
West.
No.
Becerra.
No.
Contos.
Yes.
And Hart.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 4 ayes and 7 noes.
And the motion to amend fails. We're back to discussion on the main motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, and we have no audience to ask to participate, so we will have a roll call vote.
Okay, this is on the resolution that amends the subdivision regulations. This is the main motion. Jones.
Yes.
Merritt.
No.
Ramos.
No.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Vaccination.
No.
Von Lossberg.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Contos.
No.
Hart.
No.
Hess.
Yes.
Six ayes and 5 nays.
And the motion is approved. We have no additional items for final consideration this evening. I will pass on communications from the mayor and we'll begin general comments from council members with Ms. Cheryl.
So again, I'm going to be a broken record, but I just want to tell everyone that there is a clinic that's popping up for vaccinations at Winco. You can get a Johnson & Johnson shot, one shot deal. It's on Thursday the 13th, and you need to be 18 or older. I also just wanted to make a quick comment about the lifting of the mask mandate that the health department just did. We had looked at what our when we considered lifting the mask mandate and making it a recommendation, we had looked at very carefully as a board of what our goals were going to be as far as vaccinations, as far as our case numbers. We felt like tomorrow was going to be that day. In the meantime, the governor signed, I think it's Senate bill, it may have been a House Bill 257, which made the mask mandate unenforceable anyway. So all kind of came at the same time. What I will say, to our community that I'm sure is feeling anxious about it, and I am feeling anxious about it too, even though my family is fully vaccinated, and I know so many others are. Our case numbers are good. Our vaccination rates are good. We have, as of 2 weeks ago, we had over, sorry, my kids are making noise. We had over 83% of those that in our community that were 70 and older were vaccinated. 83% of 70 and older. That is a really good number. And those are the ones we worry about being most at risk. So our numbers there are really good. Obviously, it's going down as we get younger, but we're getting pretty close. I think I haven't heard an update for a couple weeks, but to getting almost to 60% of our eligible population that has had at least one shot, and which has pretty good immunity. And then I'm happy to say that the FDA just approved for 12 to 15, which is a big deal. MCPS came out saying they will keep the mask mandate in effect until the end of the school year, which I fully support, because a lot of that population is still unvaccinated. I would say get vaccinated, and please respect the businesses that decide that they are going to require masks. That is their decision. And it is not really an employee's job that is selling you, clothes or selling you some type of gear or serving you to force you to do that. So if they please respect the businesses if they decide to continue to have a mask mandate. And thanks so much.
Mr. Von Lossberg.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Missoula Community Foundation for the incredibly successful Missoula Gives campaign, and a special recognition to my Ward 1 colleague, Miss West, for everything she did to help the Lowell School PTA do an incredible job, exceed expectations, and have top 6, if I'm not mistaken, in number of donors. So well done, Heidi, and everyone who participated in the campaign.
And Ms. Hart.
Just following along those lines, Missoula Gives raised 20% more in dollars than they did last year. So what it demonstrates is that this community really does care about the work that nonprofits all do. Kudos to you, Heidi. You did a great job.
Ms. Jones.
Thanks. I just wanted to add a couple more facts on to Ms. Cheryl's discussion of current stage of the vaccination in Missoula, and that is that the 16 to 18-year-olds in our community are 36% of them are vaccinated, which is great. So they have made huge inroads since that door was opened. And as Ms. Cheryl said, now 12 to 15, that age group is opened up. So let's continue to encourage our young people to get those vaccinations. And I know that they are continuing to work on the 20 to 30-year age group. So let's go to some concerts this summer and get those vaccinations done.
Mr. Contos.
I'll pass. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
Ms. Merritt.
I'm going to add one more vaccine comment, and that is that MCPS is planning on doing a vaccination clinic for the 12 to 15-year-olds that have just been approved. And those are scheduled for May 20th and 21st. If you have a student in that age range at MCPS, keep an eye out for more information about how those vaccination clinics are going to happen. Thanks.
Ms. Becerra.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Mr. Ramos.
I'll pass. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I noticed a couple of very young donors to the Lowell PTA cause, which was great. And I think it's really great that those young people, those elementary school students, were committing their allowance money in that way. And so nice work. I wanted to highlight also that the TSA has extended a federal mandate of masks in federal transportation facilities, which include our airport and also Mountain Line Transit through mid-September. And so public transportation has been proven to be remarkably safe throughout the pandemic, and masks will continue to keep it so. And so I just wanted to draw that distinction that as our mask mandates through action of the legislature and other factors as those mandates change, there are places that still have mandates. And as Ms. Cheryl said, I encourage folks to respect those mandates where they continue to exist.
Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. I was happy to hear of the changing of the mask mandate to recommendation instead of requirement. And I also wanted to let everyone know, and just like what Ms. Cheryl and Mr. Hess said, these are private businesses, so they are able to choose to keep the mask requirement. So please be respectful of that. If you don't want to do the mask mandate there, then just now you have the option of going somewhere else. So please be courteous of our neighborhood and our community. Thank you.
Ms. West, you get the last word.
I must be on the bottom of your screen. So I've got a couple things. First of all, big giant thank you to the Missoula Community Foundation. I think Missoula Gives is one of the most awesome events, and it really makes fundraising something that's accessible to really tiny organizations that maybe don't have, staff capacity or internal capacity, and still manage to pull off really successful events. So I think that's great. My second item is a big congratulations to the YWCA. Some of us had the opportunity to tour the Meadowlark last week, and it is an absolutely amazing building that clearly had a lot of thought go into it. It has all sorts of just really well thought out details that I think are going to make it a wonderful, if temporary, home for people in our community. And then today, the Missoula County Sheriff's Office announced that they finally identified Christy Crystal Creek, who has been a Jane Doe since, I believe, 1985. And they finally gave her name back. She was Janet L. Lucas, and they are looking for information of anyone who ran into her back in 1983 or 1984, so they can figure out how, now that they know who she is, how she ended up where she did. And I also just want to encourage people that have gotten their DNA profiles to upload that information to places like GEDmatch that allow this genetic genealogy process to happen that has been giving people their names back and solving crimes in this really new technology that's changing how we investigate past crimes. So thank you.
All right, with that, we have no committee reports this evening, nor any items of new business. Turns out that legislature is shut down for a spell. Are there any additional items to be referred? Right, seeing none of those, any miscellaneous communications, petitions, reports, or announcements? And seeing none of those, as always, I thank you for your service, and we will be adjourned.